Thanks for staying with us right here on Sunrise as we continue this Wednesday morning. Now, registration is now open at most institutions of higher learning around the country. Many of them have called on potential students to apply online. Last month, the president announced most South Africans are eligible for free higher education, and Higher Education Minister Professor Hlengwe Mkhize says the plan will be phased in over a period of 5 years. Now, to elaborate more on those issues, we are now joined in studio by Deputy Minister of Higher Education, Buti Manamela. Remember, you can be part of our conversation by leaving your comments on our Facebook as well as our Twitter pages. We're also taking your calls live on 011-447-1742 or 011-447-1620. Good morning to you, Deputy Minister, and thanks for joining us this morning. Kicked off the year, obviously running on the ground with some of the situations across institutions of higher learning when it comes to registration. So far, how has it been going?
Look, I mean, there's not been anything out of the ordinary. And I think, firstly, what we need to call on all South Africans, particularly parents and those grade 12 kids who passed last year. If you have applied, if you have been granted a space at a university, if your parents' joint income is 350,000 rands, and if you qualify for the program that you need to study for, therefore, sit back, relax. You don't need to rush to a university and all of that, because almost everything up to that far has been sorted, because there's been a panic, some sort of a panic that has been created, and that's why people are flocking to universities. Secondly, we are expecting that, as soon as I think this week or the next week, goes by, people will know where they want to go study. Others probably didn't do well. They would want to go repeat their matric, and therefore you will have a lot of spaces opened up. Already TUT, Tshwane University of Technology, has indicated that there are some spaces available and all of that. And then there are, TVET colleges also, which we encourage grade 12 learners who passed to go and apply there. So essentially, it has been quite a smooth process in our view. There's not been any major incidents reported, and we're hoping that we'll start the academic year on time.
But in terms of the numbers of potential students versus the spaces that are available, there's obviously never a match in that regard. But the challenge as well is those who didn't make it the previous year trying to get into the colleges or universities. How is that being addressed, especially with the free education conversation continuing?
I think the free education conversation, it's important that we make that clarification. So it's not free education for all, as it has been projected. So what the president said was that certain learners within a certain category will not pay fees. So that's new entrants, and that will be phased in, as you indicated in your intro, over the next 5 years. And those are already on loans, National Student Financial Aid Scheme loans. If they're academically doing well, those loans will be converted into bursaries. So I think it's important we clarify that. But I think that you're also right that the available spaces will not match the demand. And that's a completely different debate. So the fee free for those who qualify in the context of what the president announced will only apply in relation to the available spaces. So for new entrants, for instance, throughout the universities, there are 203,000 spaces available. For TVET colleges, 198,000, and there are close to 50,000 or more spaces in learnerships. In fact, close to 70,000 spaces in learnerships, artisans, and all of that, which are provided by CETA. So we're talking close to 500,000 spaces for those who passed and for those who couldn't get in last year and who want to get in. And for those who think, well, look, given the president's announcement, I can now go and study further. So we think there are sufficient spaces. They may not cover everybody. And so the reason I said earlier that it's a different discussion is because, 3 years ago, we opened 2 new universities. We're in the process of completing the 12 TVET college campuses, and that's part of expanding the system. And we are hoping that at least the majority of those who are eligible will be accommodated in our post-school education and training sector.
So there is what the government is doing, and then there's the independent universities themselves, and they run as independent institutions. You say the people are hearing there is access to education, depending on the bracket that you're in, and then the universities are saying we're not interested in walk-ins, and then there's other people who are saying, you know, if you want to go to school, go to school. How is that conversation controlled, or how should it be controlled by yourselves as a Department of Higher Education? Because there's clearly some confusion out there. There's
actually no confusion. Firstly, universities have been allowing walk-ins for the last 3 to 4 years. Of course, we've been discouraging people to walk in. We have been running a campaign called Apply Now and CATA, which is encouraging grade 12 learners to apply as early as possible and also make a career choice. But even with that, people still go to universities, you know, because we still have not acclimatized ourselves to this online thing. You know, I want to talk to a person.
But not everybody has access to it.
But it's not only about getting on your laptop. You can also send a please call me and say, hey, higher education, call me back. Or there's a toll-free line. You know, we'll give it to you so that you give it to those who haven't applied and, you know, they still want to. You know, so we've covered all of those. But what I also want to indicate is that, you know, I mean, in 2012, a parent died waiting on the queue at the University of Johannesburg because there was a stampede. There was a stampede. Yeah. Now, those are the things which we want to avoid, and that's why there are all these platforms that have been created. What I said to university vice-chancellors on Monday when I met with them, I said, if people appear there at your universities, don't turn them away.
Okay, let's take Charles in Bela on the line. Hi, Charles. Charles, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am, I'm accepted for a BTech degree in TUT. So I'm not sure if NSFAS funds BTech degree, but I'm willing to study and I don't have any money for registration. I'm afraid that my space will be forfeited because I don't have money for registration.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Look, I mean, if Charles, that's my homeboy. If TUT has accepted you, and if the joint income of your parents is up to 350,000 rands, then the National Student Financial Aid Scheme should be able to fund you. So what NSFAS does is they're going to look at those who've been granted spaces at institutions of learning and compare those with what you've indicated in your application, and on the basis of that, grant you, you know, a bursary. So it shouldn't be a problem.
What about his registration fee?
No, that's going to be paid by the NSFAS. Okay. So anybody who has been, anyone who's qualified for a bursary for the National Student Financial Aid Scheme should not worry about a registration fee. That will be covered. So it's a thing of the past. Okay.
All right. Charles, thanks for the call. So the toll-free number that they can call on, what is the toll-free number?
Okay. The SMS, the free SMS is 49200.
49200.
Yeah, so you send an SMS there with your ID number. You'll be called back, and then you indicate where you want to study and all of that.
Okay. Yeah. Let's take Sidwell from Gauteng. Hello, Sidwell.
Hello.
Hi, Sidwell. Please put your TV off. Your comment or question?
No, I want to know the number, the first number that you can call for higher education. The first number that the union suggested that is available.
All right. Okay. We'll give the number at the end of the conversation. Okay. So in terms of the challenge around students who owe universities or who owe NSFAS, how is that going to be addressed going forward?
Yeah. So you see, we couldn't, and HEHA Commission couldn't also come to the compound the amount. So what we're going to be doing together with the Minister and the Presidency and Treasury is to look at the extent of how much that is. As is now, if you've studied through NSFAS, you've had a loan, or TEFSA, you've had a loan, if you're working, if you can afford it, please repay the loan. If you're in the system, first year or second year, you were funded by NSFAS through a loan, please, or through the university, please repay the loan. Your third year, if you qualify, will be paid for by the state. Now, at a particular point, and we're hoping that it will be as soon as possible, the Minister of Higher Education, together with Treasury and DPME, will then, after having understood the extent of the amount, because we can't just say, look, we'll pay everything else when we don't know how much it is, then we'll determine what happens with that. But what I also want to emphasize is that those who are going to be whose fees are going to be paid by the government from this year onwards, that firstly, we expect them to academically perform to the best of their ability, pass. Secondly, we will also expect them to do some form of service to the country upon completion of their degree. Okay. So all of those details will be finalized. All right,
finally, you're doing walkabouts today?
Yes. We're going to the Central Application Clearing House, which is the catch system, where we're hoping that, that 49200 number that I gave you, where we expecting, people to make an application. So I'm going to check how that has been going.
At the clearance center?
Yes, at the clearance center. Then I'm going to UJ and at the Soweto College.
All right, well, we'll have to leave it at that. Thanks very much for chatting to us.
Thank you.
That number to SMS again is 49200 Sidwell, so you can get that information for yourself. Thanks, Deputy Minister for Higher Education, for joining us this morning. Do stay with us at Sunrise Live right here at E!